get permanent jobs and things like that, then the private sector, because the government spends so much on the public sector work, but that is not what is taking the masses. The private sector should be taking the masses. But I don't know whether there's a clear policy. There must be. But how effective it is working, I don't know. How is government really helping? Sometimes I walk around and I say, I want to see big factories, big structures, and so on.
But government has supported some of these factories under the 1D1F. There are businesses that have been supported, assisted financially. They've gone for loans, at some good rates, so they can expand their businesses and rope in more workers. We know the CARES program, which of course is supposed to help the Obantapa program. That is also to help entrepreneurs get some capital, ingest into their businesses, and then get to employ more people.
One thing which I find, which is a different approach from what I hear or read about in the Eastern Tigers, the Malaysia, Singapore, and things like that, especially South Korea and things like that. There's a kind of private-public partnership in setting up. I don't know why we seem to have failed. What do you call it? SOEs, state enterprises, and things like that. And I don't know whether they have run and they are being paid by government or they run to pay themselves and make profit. The other time I was listening to, what is his name? Something Boateng. He's the one in charge of the state enterprises and things like that. And he mentioned that none of them seem to be making profits. When the state seem to be partnering with they get the impression that they are public workers, and they don't seem to be working on making profit unless, therefore, really making their things work. So we always seem to have a problem. I don't know the kind of mindset with which we enter. And when people are doing things privately on their own, then there is this attitude that they are exploiting. And the people who go to work for them also carry that attitude. And
that's why people are saying that, well, the Ghanaian worker is lazy and also is also dishonest. Is that what you also
yes, there's because the average Ghanaian worker, and when you look at the salary difference, for example, and the type of salaries that government is paying government workers and what the private person can afford, immediately the one who is going to work there gets the impression that, hey, I am being exploited. And yet there's a certain level of productivity that is expected of me. Whilst you may not even get that level of productivity in the government services. So, and we've gone through all of this, what the public service reforms and things like Kusi Boafo, I think he was put there. I don't know how far he's been able to change things and so on. Who was that man who was also put there by Kufuor's administration?
This politician.
Indum. Again, when Indum came on and then they said they were even going to do, what do you call it, the single spine salary, it created a whole lot of confusion. So you have a whole section where people are struggling to really get ongoing with their industries. And as I was saying, you read about the Eastern Tigers, and the government takes a whole, let's say, vehicle assembly and things like that, and help the people to go on. For example, I don't know. Somebody said during President Kufuor's era that this guy Kantanka,
who's into vehicles and farming and so many other things,
and things like that, and this guy should be assisted. The answer was, let him go to the banks and find some money for expansion and things like that. But if we see people who are showing this kind of potential, why is there not that kind of thing? People who can employ thousands and expand and so on. And you see that it has to take a whole lot of individual struggle. And the government puts some people into going to teach, and they are not being prepared to teach. They go in there and underemployment and things like that. And we are still haven't seen a clear-cut policy. And one thing which is always our problem is that when one government comes with a certain policy, 4 years or whatever later, Another one comes with another kind of policy. We don't seem to, as a nation, collectively saying that this is what we are pursuing, and it doesn't matter what government is in place. Let's pursue this to its ultimate. That's another big problem. So we are not empowering the private sector,
the entrepreneurs,
to take the masses and employ them.
But again, in as much as that is an issue, you also touched on a concern where you're saying that the attitude of the Ghanaian worker and the fact that the Ghanaian worker is lazy and is also dishonest is not encouraging people who hitherto could set up businesses and employ some of these unemployed youth. It's also a challenge.
Yes, over the past, in fact, just last Sunday, I went to visit one of my former churches, and I met one lady who has established this water purifying business and so on. And a whole lot of things that he was telling me about the way, the attitude of the workers, the stealing, the vehicles they have, and all kinds of things. Then I met one about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he also told me, in fact, a lot of the things he has started, he has to abandon them, and now he's concentrating on. He was working as a government employer, and then he had a printing press, he had established a school, he had all kinds of things going, and he told me, look, now the attitude is that I better put my money into what? Treasury bill, rather than to do this in an employ people. The guy who is working on my book, I go, and he's always has a problem with the people who have to work with him. The attitude is to do very little, or to find a way of stealing, or to come to all kinds of attitude that will not help.
And it cuts across. It cuts across from the public service or the public sector and the private sector as well. But I was thinking that with the private sector, we could do much better. Because that one, you have line managers, supervision is key. And so therefore, people cannot do some of these things and go or get away with it.
No, it's all over the place. My own personal experiences, I get a plumber to come and do some work for me. He argues, he says, this is how much we will charge. I say,
negotiate with you.
Yeah, and then somebody was to dig a pit. Then he goes to the guy, and he also negotiates with the guy, and he says, oh, that man was off, he doesn't have money. So this is how much he says he will pay you. And that was completely different from what he was charging me. He was supposed to get the pit and then do the plumbing work. So this guy was to do his part, and he would do his part. But at the end of the day, and he was somebody who had been working, always calling to come and do my plumbing works for me. But then it clearly showed that he had always planned to cheat. And when we got to know it,
Why do you think it's so? Could one of the reasons be that people are underpaid?
Well, that could be a factor. But there is always the impression that the one who has set up a job is exploiting. And I don't think it's always true. And the people want to do very little and get more money by doing very little. And we get the impression that if we all do well and we all get the profit,
collectively when we do the right things,
we all benefit.
But can't we? I wanted to ask what has caused this or why it is so. But I don't think that the Ghanaian is lazy. Because put the same Ghanaian in the United States of America.
Yes.
Put the same Ghanaian somewhere in the UK. He would do 3 or 4 or even more jobs just to get by. And would, based on the system, the structures that is available in those places, that Ghanaian might try maybe to be dishonest and steal, but will not be successful. So laziness will not be countenanced there. And then you cannot be dishonest to the system. You might try, but you'll be found out and you might, be sacked or face the law. So what would it take for us to be able to fix the problem here?
The systems. And this attitude, there is a song that they used to sing long ago, you young people will not know. It says, Brunia Juma Mama Bio Fako. So the whole attitude was that when you went into the public service or something, it was Obrunia Juma. And if you are not going to allow me to, I don't care, because I'm doing it for Obroni. And That seems to be a basic thing that we have. That anytime you are doing it, sometimes you see people write on their vehicles, "Kamebre." And all that he is saying is that you are exploiting me and I'm doing more and you are enjoying. Maybe sometimes the lifestyles of some business entrepreneurs and things seem to portray that. Because while the businesses are not running well, they are riding in all kinds of vehicles and enjoying and so on and so forth. But there's a basic problem which we have. What you just described is, how can we create an environment where even if you are lazy, you cannot be part of it.
Yes, because...
And you'll be forced to do it.
Yes, because in some places, they have cameras. They have clockings. And then you have supervisors who are ensuring that you are achieving the target set for you. So if we have all these available, why can't we make use of them?
These are some of the things that I believe that governments, if they target certain areas, this one district, one factory thing is good. But how much people has it taken away in terms of job employment? Are there some areas that we can seriously exploit and hammer in and get our jobs going? For example, this Singapore example we keep on referring to, they are not a country with much resources, but they saw the need to really get big industries and things like services and so on. And Lee Kuan Yew says he had to really educate their people to develop he says we must have develop country attitude towards work in our area. Why? And that's what we just said. Why is it that somebody goes to Aburokyire, he has to have a different attitude towards work, but when he comes to Ghana, there's a whole different attitude towards work here.
And if we will be sincere and honest to ourselves, after independence, we have so many factories.
We had.
Where are they? Collapsed.
Yes.
And that should say a lot to us, because we have the shoe factory, the matches factory, the bottling factory. We have so many of them.
Yeah.
And now I'm tempted to believe that this same attitude of the Ghanaian, where you say that we're lazy and we are dishonest, has caused us to run these businesses down, and therefore they are no more. And once these companies are no more, it means that people don't get
going to jobs.
So if we have all this ringing in our minds, what would it take for us to change that attitude of the Ghanaian? For the attitude of the Ghanaian to change so that he's more honest than dishonest, and is more prepared to work than be lazy. What would it take?
Well, does it mean the churches must come in, then the religious bodies? No. The point is, if you read the Bible, when I just came, I took my Bible and opened to something that the Bible says about Joseph when he got into Potiphar's house. Yeah. And the Bible says, so long as Joseph was in that house, Potiphar could forget about anything in his own house, because this young man took responsibility for everything that needed to be done. He says, so long as Joseph found favor in the eyes of Potiphar, put him in charge of his household, and he entrusted to his care everything he owned. From the time he put him in charge of his household and all that he owned, the Lord blessed the household of Egyptians because of Joseph. The blessing of the Lord was on everything. So Potiphar left everything he had in Joseph's care. With Joseph in charge, he did not concern himself with anything except the food he ate. Why should we be reading this every Sunday? And yet we have our people moving from the churches and going in there and have a completely different attitude towards work when they get there. When you read about Daniel, the Bible talks about his own group saying that for this man, integrity, you will not get anything from him unless that it has to do with his worship of God. When you read about David, the Bible says that God took him from the sheep pen where he was taking care of sheep, and he came and became a ruler, and he led his people with skill and with integrity. Why should we be people who go to church all the time And yet we come back, and yet our attitude towards work is such that we cannot really find the head or tail out of it.
Well, this is Love 99.5, and you're listening to Love in the Morning. And, you know, I have been saying all morning that it's estimated that about 250,000 Ghanaian, youth, both male and female, enter the labor force every year. 250,000. Out of this figure, only 2% can be absorbed into the public sector, leaving the 98 to find their way to the informal sector or remain unemployed. So unemployment is quite high in Ghana. Now, Prof says that there are people who have money and they have business ideas. Prof is saying that these people, some have established businesses, but are now contemplating folding up those businesses because of the Ghanaian attitude. He says some of them don't even want to venture into business at all because the average Ghanaian worker is lazy, and the average Ghanaian worker is dishonest. Now, I'll be happy to hear from people who are entrepreneurs to tell me whether they agree with this description of some Ghanaians by Professor Safo-Kantanka. Do you agree that Ghanaians are lazy and are dishonest when it comes to work? We'll be activating the phone lines in a bit to hear from you. But again, as a nation, how well have we tackled our unemployment situation? And my worry is we've had, after independence, we've had several, factories, several companies, but they have collapsed. Now, if we keep collapsing businesses or factories, how can we create more jobs? If the ones that we came to meet after independence, we had, sustained them, maintained them, and we've added on, our situation will not be as dire as it is now. So, like I said, I'll be activating the phone lines in a bit to hear from you as well. But before then, hand-washing moments have become happier moments for many families.